The first time Rebecca Nielsen noticed him was on a Tuesday morning when the rain pounded against the windows of the daily grind. She had ducked into the coffee shop to escape both the downpour and the never-ending stream of emails that had filled her morning, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she made her way to the counter. As CEO of Nielsen Technologies, she rarely found a moment to breathe, let alone enjoy a cup of coffee without someone demanding her attention. But then she saw it a smile that somehow outshone the dismal gray of the Seattle morning. It belonged to a man sitting at a corner table, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he helped a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 carefully color inside the lines of her coloring book. Rebecca found herself staring, oddly captivated by the genuine warmth in that simple interaction. In her world of corporate takeovers and profit margins, such unguarded moments of joy were rare. "Your usual, Miss Nielsen?" The barista's voice pulled her attention back to the counter. "Yes, thank you, Tara." Rebecca handed over her platinum card, her gaze drifting back to the man and child. The little girl had dark curls like her father and wore a slightly too large raincoat with cartoon frogs on it. The man's clothes were clean but visibly worn jeans with a faded patch on one knee and a simple blue button-down shirt rolled up at the sleeves, revealing tanned forearms. As Rebecca waited for her drink, she watched as the man produced a small paper bag from his backpack and carefully divided what appeared to be half a muffin between himself and the little girl. The child's face lit up as if she'd been given a gourmet meal, and something in Rebecca's chest tightened. "Triple shot vanilla latte," Tara called out, sliding the cup across the counter. Rebecca thanked her and on impulse turned back. "And whatever that gentleman and his daughter in the corner would like, put it on my card." Tara followed her gaze and smiled. "Mr. Calloway and Emma." "They're regulars. He always just gets a small coffee and splits a muffin with her." "Well, today they're having whatever they want," Rebecca said firmly. "Just don't mention it came from me." She took her coffee and settled at a table where she could partially see them while checking her emails. A few minutes later, she watched as Tara approached their table with 2 hot chocolates topped with whipped cream and a plate of fresh pastries. The look of surprise on the man's face, Mr. Calloway, apparently was followed by confusion, then a smile that transformed his entire face. The little girl, Emma, clapped her hands in delight. Rebecca felt an unexpected warmth spread through her chest at their happiness. She quickly looked down at her phone when Mr. Calloway glanced around the coffee shop, clearly looking for their benefactor. Her assistant had sent 13 urgent emails in the 20 minutes she'd been away from the office. The real world was calling. With one last glance at the happy pair, Rebecca headed back into the rain, telling herself that her small act of kindness was nothing more than that, small and inconsequential. She had an empire to run, after all. No time for distractions. Bradley Calloway's morning routine had been the same for the past year, ever since he'd become a single father. Wake at 5, prepare Emma's lunch, do a couple hours of freelance graphic design work, wake Emma, get her ready for school, and then stop at the daily grind for their special morning ritual before dropping her off. The coffee shop was their small luxury, the one place where Bradley allowed himself to splurge, even if it meant just a small coffee for him and half a muffin for Emma. It was their special time together, a bright spot in what had otherwise been a challenging year. "Daddy, who was that pretty lady?" Emma asked, chocolate mustache adorning her upper lip as she devoured her unexpected treat. Bradley glanced toward the door where the woman in question had just left, a sleek figure disappearing into the rain. "I don't know, sweetheart, but wasn't it nice of someone to buy us these treats?" "Super nice. Do you think it was her? She kept looking at us." Bradley smiled at his daughter's perception. He had noticed the elegant woman watching them with an expression he couldn't quite place. Curiosity, perhaps, or was it something else? There had been a moment when their eyes had met across the room, and he'd felt an unexpected jolt of connection. "Maybe," he said, wiping a bit of whipped cream from Emma's chin. "If it was, we'll have to thank her next time." She looked like a princess in her fancy clothes, Emma declared. Like in my books, Bradley chuckled. The woman had indeed looked like she'd stepped from the pages of a fashion magazine with her tailored charcoal suit and the kind of confidence that commanded attention. Definitely out of his league, especially these days when he was struggling to rebuild his life after Julie's death had left him a widower with a heartbroken 5-year-old. Finish up, Em. We need to get you to school, and I have a client meeting at 10. As they gathered their things, Bradley couldn't help wondering about the mystery woman and why someone like her would take notice of them. He'd been invisible to such people ever since he'd lost his job at the advertising agency and had to start freelancing to make ends meet while caring for Emma. Mr. Calloway, Tara called as they headed for the door. Don't forget your umbrella, and here, she handed him a small bag, some cookies for Emma's lunchbox, on the house. Bradley started to protest, but Tara waved him off. Just take them, and maybe come back around this time tomorrow. We're doing a customer appreciation thing. Her meaningful glance told Bradley all he needed to know. She was trying to orchestrate another meeting with their mysterious benefactor. He should say no, he had his pride after all. But something about the woman's eyes, warm brown with flecks of amber, had stirred something in him he thought had died along with Julie. We'll see, he said noncommittally, but he knew they'd be back. Rebecca wasn't sure why she returned to the coffee shop the next day. She had a perfectly good espresso machine in her office, and back-to-back meetings that her assistant was already rescheduling to accommodate this unexpected detour. Yet here she was, arriving 5 minutes earlier than yesterday, scanning the shop for a man and little girl who were, disappointingly, nowhere to be seen. Good morning, Miss Nielsen, Tara greeted her with a knowing smile. Your usual? Yes, please. Rebecca glanced at her watch. And I'm in a hurry today. She wasn't, not really. She'd built in time for this detour, telling herself it was simple curiosity, nothing more. She was waiting for her drink when the door chimed, and in came Bradley Calloway and his daughter, both slightly breathless as if they'd hurried. Sorry we're late, Tara, the little girl announced, tugging off her mittens. Daddy couldn't find his good shirt. Bradley's face flushed adorably as he shushed his daughter. Emma, inside voice, remember? Rebecca couldn't help but smile as she observed him. Today, he wore what must be the good shirt, a crisp blue button-down that brought out the startling blue of his eyes. His dark hair was still slightly damp, curling at the ends, and she could tell he'd made an extra effort today. Their eyes met across the room, and this time, she didn't look away. Instead, she offered a small smile, which he returned hesitantly. Triple shot vanilla latte, the barista called, and Rebecca took her drink, making a decision. Instead of leaving, she walked directly to their table. Good morning, she said, surprising herself with the slight nervousness in her voice. When was the last time Rebecca Nielsen, named one of Seattle's most powerful CEOs 3 years running, had felt nervous talking to anyone? Morning. Emma chirped before her father could respond. Did you buy us hot chocolate yesterday? Daddy said it might be you because you're pretty like a princess. Bradley looked mortified. Emma, I did not say I didn't phrase it exactly. He took a breath and composed himself, standing to offer his hand. I'm Bradley Calloway. This is my daughter, Emma, and thank you, if that was you yesterday. Rebecca took his hand, noting the calluses that spoke of work harder than shuffling papers and typing on keyboards. Rebecca Nielsen. And yes, that was me. I hope I didn't overstep. Not at all, Bradley said, his smile genuine despite his obvious embarrassment. It made our day. Mine too, actually, Rebecca admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. Would you mind if I joined you for a moment, unless you're in a rush? Please? Emma patted the seat next to her. Daddy's not in a rush. He said we could take our time today because he wanted to see if the PR... She was cut off by Bradley's gentle hand on her shoulder. We'd love the company, he said, shooting his daughter a look that made Rebecca hide a smile behind her coffee cup. As she sat down, Rebecca felt oddly out of her element. Board meetings and investor pitches were her comfort zone, not casual coffee shop conversations with handsome single fathers and precocious little girls. "So, what do you do, Bradley?" she asked, trying to steer toward safer ground. "I'm a graphic designer, freelance mostly these days. It lets me set my own hours, which is important now that it's just Emma and me." There was a story there, in the shadow that briefly crossed his face, but he continued before she could ask. "And you? What brings you to the daily grind on rainy weekday mornings?" "I work nearby," Rebecca said vaguely, not quite ready to reveal her position. People tended to change when they learned she was CEO of a tech company valued at over $1 billion. Technology sector. "She has really pretty shoes," Emma observed, peering under the table. "Daddy says fancy shoes like that cost more than our rent." "Emma." Bradley looked mortified again. Rebecca laughed, a real laugh that she realized hadn't escaped her in months. "He's probably right. It's one of my weaknesses, I'm afraid. Shoes and coffee." "Everyone needs something," Bradley said, his eyes meeting hers with an understanding that felt oddly intimate. "For us, it's our morning ritual here. No matter what else is happening, we make time for this." Rebecca found herself envying their simple tradition. Her days were scheduled to the minute, every meal and coffee break slotted in between meetings and conference calls. When was the last time she'd done something simply because it brought her joy? "What about you, Emma?" Rebecca asked, turning to the little girl. "What do you like besides hot chocolate, drawing, ballet, my stuffed panda bamboo, and Daddy's pancakes on Sundays?" Emma counted on her fingers. "Oh, and I'm learning to read big girl books now." "She's already reading at a second grade level," Bradley said with unmistakable pride, "though she's only in kindergarten." "That's impressive," Rebecca said, genuinely impressed. "I was an early reader too. It opens up whole worlds, doesn't it?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "I'm reading Charlotte's Web now. Daddy does the voices." The image of this man doing character voices for his daughter made something warm unfurl in Rebecca's chest. Julie had been gone 16 months, and there had been plenty of nights when Bradley had wondered if the crushing grief would ever ease. But here was this unexpected morning, this unexpected woman, and for the first time in a very long time, he felt a spark of something that might be hope. Rebecca glanced at her watch and sighed. "I should go. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. "Thank you for stopping by," Bradley said, meaning it, "and for yesterday. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Rebecca paused, then smiled. "I'd like that." "Same time. We'll be here," Bradley promised. As she walked away, Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, I like her. She smiles with her eyes like Mommy used to." Bradley watched Rebecca navigate through the morning crowd, her confident stride carrying her back to a world he knew nothing about. "I like her too, Em," he admitted softly. "I like her too." For the next 2 weeks, Rebecca found herself rearranging her morning schedule to make time for coffee with Bradley and Emma. What had started as a chance encounter became something she looked forward to each day, a bright spot in her otherwise relentless schedule. They established a routine. Bradley and Emma would arrive first, claiming their usual corner table. Rebecca would join them for 20 minutes, sometimes stretching to 30, when she could manage it, before heading to the office. They talked about Emma's school projects, Bradley's freelance clients, books they'd read, and the persistent Seattle rain. What they didn't talk about was Rebecca's exact position. "I work in tech," was all she'd offered, or the circumstances that had left Bradley a single parent. There were boundaries they both maintained, keeping their morning coffee dates in a bubble separate from the complexities of their real lives. Until one Friday morning, when Rebecca arrived to find only Emma at the table, coloring intently with a worried expression. "Good morning, Emma," Rebecca said, sliding into her usual seat. "Where's your dad?" "He's on the phone outside," Emma said, not looking up from her drawing. "He's talking to Miss Patterson from school. I got in trouble yesterday." "Oh." Rebecca wasn't sure if she should pry, but Emma continued without prompting. "Tyler said daddas who don't have real jobs are losers, so I pushed him off the swings." Emma's lower lip trembled. Now Daddy has to pay for Tyler's glasses that broke, and he was crying this morning when he thought I was still sleeping. Rebecca felt a surge of protective anger both for Emma and for Bradley, who she knew worked incredibly hard. Tyler was wrong to say that, she said firmly. And while pushing isn't the right way to handle it, I understand why you were upset. Emma finally looked up, her eyes so like her father's swimming with tears. Daddy works really hard. He stays up late every night doing his computer drawings, and sometimes people don't even pay him after. The door to the coffee shop opened and Bradley walked in, his expression strained until he saw Rebecca. Then a genuine smile broke through, transforming his face despite the worry lines around his eyes. "Sorry about that," he said, sliding into his seat. "School matters." "Emma told me," Rebecca said gently, "about Tyler and his glasses." Bradley sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I was hoping to spare you our drama. It's not exactly great coffee conversation." "I don't mind," Rebecca said truthfully. "How much are the glasses?" $300, which shouldn't be a big deal, except that I've got a client who's 3 weeks late paying me and rent is due next week," and he stopped himself, clearly embarrassed. "Sorry, not your problem." "What if it could be?" Rebecca said, an idea forming. "Bradley, I've been meaning to ask. My company needs a new design for our quarterly reports and website refresh. Our usual agency is booked solid. I've seen your portfolio online, and your work is exactly what we're looking for. Would you be interested? You looked me up." Bradley seemed surprised. "Of course I did," Rebecca admitted. "I was curious. And what company is this for exactly? You've been pretty vague about where you work." Rebecca took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been avoiding. "Nielsen Technologies, I'm the CEO." Bradley stared at her, processing this information. "Nielsen Tech, wait. You're that Rebecca Nielsen? The one who was on the cover of Business Weekly last month?" Rebecca nodded, watching his expression carefully. This was why she hadn't told him sooner. People always changed when they knew. "Well," he said finally, a slow smile spreading across his face. "That explains the shoes." Rebecca couldn't help laughing, relief washing over her. "So, about that design work. It would be a proper contract, market rates, no special treatment, just a job I think you'd be excellent for." "I'd be lying if I said I couldn't use the work," Bradley admitted. "But I don't want you to feel obligated because of whatever this is between us." The acknowledgement that there was indeed something between them hung in the air, neither willing to define it yet. "It's not obligation," Rebecca assured him. "It's good business. I've seen your work. You're talented." "Then yes, I'd be interested." Bradley extended his hand formally, his blue eyes holding hers. "Thank you." As they shook hands, Rebecca felt the same spark she'd experienced that first morning. Only now, it felt like more than just a spark. It felt like the beginning of something that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. Bradley hadn't expected to find himself in the gleaming headquarters of Nielsen Technologies less than a week after learning who Rebecca really was. But here he was, portfolio in hand, meeting with her and her marketing team to discuss the project. When she'd entered the conference room, he'd barely recognized her. Gone was the warm, relaxed woman from the coffee shop, replaced by a commanding presence in a tailored navy suit, her dark hair swept into a sleek updo. The entire room had straightened when she walked in, and Bradley understood in that moment just how much power she wielded. Yet when she caught his eye, he glimpsed the Rebecca he knew, a quick, genuine smile before she shifted back into CEO mode. The meeting went well. Bradley presented his ideas confidently, falling back on years of agency experience. The team was receptive, especially after Rebecca expressed her approval of his initial concepts. Afterward, as the others filed out, Rebecca lingered. "Do you have a few minutes?" she asked, her professional tone softening slightly. "Of course." Bradley gathered his materials, suddenly nervous to be alone with her in this environment, her territory, where the power balance between them was so clearly defined. "Let me show you something," she said, leading him to the elevator. They rode to the top floor in companionable silence, and she guided him to a glass-walled corner office with sweeping views of downtown Seattle and the Sound beyond. "Your office?" he asked, taking in the minimalist design, the awards displayed discreetly on one wall, the single framed photo on her desk. "My cage," she said with a rueful smile, moving to the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" "Sometimes I don't see it for days, too busy with meetings and reports to even look up." Bradley joined her at the window, standing close enough to catch the subtle scent of her perfume. "Why are you showing me this?" Rebecca turned to face him, suddenly vulnerable in a way he hadn't seen before. "Because I wanted you to see this side of my life. The side that takes up most of my waking hours. The side that doesn't leave much room for other things. Like having coffee with a struggling graphic designer and his daughter," Bradley asked softly. "Like that, yes." She met his eyes directly. "Bradley, these past weeks have been unexpected. I look forward to our mornings together more than I should admit, but my life is complicated. And mine isn't." Bradley gestured to his worn messenger bag, where a child's drawing peeked out from a folder. "Single dad, freelancer, still figuring out how to raise a little girl who misses her mother." "That's just it," Rebecca said. "You have responsibilities, important ones, and I have this." She waved at the office. 500 employees depending on me, investors, board members, clients. I work 16-hour days sometimes. I take calls at midnight. I fly to Tokyo on 4 hours' notice. "Are you trying to scare me off?" Bradley asked, a hint of amusement in his voice despite the seriousness of the moment. "Maybe," she admitted. "Or maybe I'm just being honest about what you'd be getting into if this becomes something more." Bradley took a step closer to her, close enough that he could have reached out to touch her if he dared. "Rebecca, I've spent the past year and a half learning that life doesn't come with guarantees. My wife went to the store for ice cream and never came home hit by a driver who was texting. In one moment, everything changed." Rebecca's expressions softened with compassion. "I'm so sorry, Bradley." "What I'm trying to say," he continued, "is that I don't know what this is between us either. But I do know that when something unexpected and good comes into your life, you don't push it away because it might be complicated." Before Rebecca could respond, her assistant's voice came over the intercom. "Miss Nielsen, your 3 o'clock is waiting in the main conference room." Rebecca closed her eyes briefly. "I have to go." "I know," Bradley said, understanding in his voice. "Duty calls." "But this conversation isn't over," she said, making a decision. "What are you doing Saturday?" "Saturday?" Bradley seemed surprised. "Nothing special. Emma has ballet in the morning, but we're free after that. Would you two like to come to my place for lunch? I make a mean grilled cheese sandwich, which I'm told is a hit with the kindergarten crowd." Bradley's smile lit up his entire face. "We'd like that very much." As they walked back to the elevator, their hands brushed, and for a moment, Rebecca allowed herself to imagine a life where moments like these weren't stolen between meetings, a life where Bradley and Emma weren't just her coffee shop escape, but something real and lasting. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. And for the first time in years, it felt like something worth rearranging her carefully constructed life for. Saturday arrived with unexpected sunshine, a rare gift in Seattle's typically gray spring. Rebecca found herself oddly nervous as she prepared for Bradley and Emma's visit, rearranging throw pillows, checking her refrigerator multiple times, and second-guessing her casual outfit choice of jeans and a soft cashmere sweater. This wasn't a business meeting or a quick coffee date. This was Bradley and Emma entering her private space, the modern lakeside home she'd purchased after her company went public, with its clean lines and spectacular views that she rarely took time to appreciate. The doorbell rang at precisely noon. Rebecca took a deep breath and opened the door to find Emma bouncing excitedly on her toes and Bradley holding a bouquet of cheerful yellow daisies. "These are for you," Emma announced before her father could speak, pointing to the flowers. "And I made you this." She thrust forward a handmade card decorated with glitter, and what appeared to be a drawing of 3 people holding hands, one tall with long dark hair, one taller with blue scribbles for eyes, and one small figure in the middle. "It's beautiful, Emma. Thank you." Rebecca accepted both gifts, genuinely touched. "Come in, please." As they stepped inside, she watched their reactions. Emma's eyes widened at the wall of windows overlooking Lake Washington, while Bradley took in the space with appreciative interest. "Your home is gorgeous," he said, following her to the open concept kitchen, "though I expected nothing less." "It's more house than I need," Rebecca admitted, putting the flowers in a vase. "I bought it thinking I'd entertain, host dinner parties, that sort of thing. Instead, I mainly just sleep here." "Daddy says our apartment is tiny but mighty," Emma informed her, climbing onto one of the bar stools at the kitchen island. "Like me," Bradley laughed, ruffling his daughter's curls. "That she is. And perpetually hungry, so your offer of grilled cheese was perfectly timed." "Well then, let's get cooking," Rebecca said, rolling up her sleeves. "Emma, would you like to help?" The little girl nodded enthusiastically, and soon they fell into a comfortable rhythm, Rebecca showing Emma how to butter bread just so, Bradley slicing tomatoes, and setting the table as if they'd done this 100 times before. After lunch, they moved to the deck overlooking the lake, where Emma spotted a family of ducks swimming near the shore. Bradley helped her count them while Rebecca brought out cookies and coffee. "This is nice," Bradley said softly as Emma continued her duck watching at a safe distance. "Seeing you outside the coffee shop, outside your office." "It is," Rebecca agreed, settling into a chair beside him. "I can't remember the last time I actually used this deck, or made lunch for anyone for that matter." "Well, you make an excellent grilled cheese." Emma's given it her highest rating. Rebecca smiled, watching the little girl who had somehow worked her way into her heart over the past few weeks. "She's an amazing kid, Bradley. You're doing a wonderful job with her." "I'm trying," he said, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "Some days I feel completely out of my depth. Julie was the organized one, the one who always knew what to do. I'm still figuring it out as I go." "That's all any of us can do," Rebecca said, thinking of her own journey, the years of uncertainty, the mistakes, the hard-won lessons. "Figure it out as we go." Bradley turned to look at her, his blue eyes intent. "Rebecca, there's something I've been wanting to ask you," her heart quickened. "Yes. Would you, Daddy, Rebecca, the ducks are coming closer." Emma's excited call interrupted whatever he had been about to say. Bradley smiled ruefully. "Hold that thought." They spent the afternoon exploring Rebecca's neglected garden, helping Emma build a small fort from cushions in the living room, and talking about everything and nothing. Rebecca couldn't remember the last time she'd spent an entire afternoon without checking her phone or thinking about work. It felt like a gift. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the lake, Bradley reluctantly announced it was time to go. Emma protested, but a reminder about tomorrow's promised visit to the Children's Museum persuaded her. At the door, Emma hugged Rebecca fiercely around the waist. "Thank you for the grilled cheese and the cookies and letting me see the ducks," she said in one breath. "You're very welcome, Emma." "I had a wonderful time." As Emma skipped ahead to the car, Bradley lingered on the doorstep. "I wanted to finish what I was saying earlier," he said, his voice low. "Rebecca, would you consider having dinner with me, just the two of us? A proper date." Rebecca felt a flutter of anticipation. "I'd like that very much." "Good," he said, relief evident in his smile, "because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, and I was beginning to worry it was just me." "It's not just you," Rebecca assured him, taking a small step closer. "Not at all." For a moment, they stood looking at each other, the air between them charged with possibility. Then Bradley leaned forward and kissed her tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as she responded. It was a perfect first kiss, sweet and unhurried, full of promise. When they broke apart, Rebecca felt slightly dazed, as if she'd been awakened from a long sleep. "Wednesday night," Bradley suggested, his voice slightly husky. I'll figure out childcare. Wednesday sounds perfect. Rebecca touched his cheek gently. I'll clear my schedule. As she watched him join Emma at the car, waving as they drove away, Rebecca leaned against the doorframe, her fingers touching her lips where she could still feel his kiss. For the first time in years, she was putting her personal life ahead of work. And strangely, instead of panic, all she felt was a sense of rightness, as if some missing piece had finally clicked into place. 6 months later, Rebecca sat in the daily grind, exactly where it had all begun. She checked her watch, noting that Bradley and Emma were uncharacteristically late. She'd asked them to meet her here, at their table, for an important conversation. The past months had been transformative. What had started as coffee shop encounters had blossomed into something deep and real. Bradley had become not just her partner but her balance, the person who reminded her that there was life outside the office, who made her laugh, who held her when the pressure became too much. And Emma. Sweet, precocious Emma had worked her way so thoroughly into Rebecca's heart that she couldn't imagine life without the little girl's chatter and hugs and endless questions. They'd settled into a rhythm that worked for all of them. Rebecca had adjusted her schedule to make time for family dinners 3 nights a week. Bradley had taken on the Nielsen Technologies contract, and, on Rebecca's recommendation, several other corporate clients, allowing him to hire an assistant and establish more stable working hours. They spent weekends together, museum visits, hikes, movie nights, and lazy Sunday mornings making pancakes in Rebecca's kitchen, which now featured Emma's artwork on the refrigerator and Bradley's coffee mug in the cabinet. The bell above the door chimed, and Rebecca looked up to see them enter the 2 people who had changed her life in ways she never could have anticipated that rainy Tuesday 6 months ago. "Sorry we're late," Bradley called, guiding Emma through the morning crowd. Someone couldn't decide which shoes to wear. "I wanted to look nice," Emma explained as she climbed onto her chair. "Daddy said today is special." Rebecca smiled, her heart full. "It is special, very special." "So, what's this all about?" Bradley asked, taking her hand across the table. "Your message was intriguingly cryptic." Rebecca took a deep breath. "I wanted to meet here because this is where it all began, where I first saw your smile, Bradley, and where I first met this amazing little girl who asked if I was a princess." Emma giggled. "You looked like one." "Well, today I don't have a business proposal or a work emergency," Rebecca continued. "Today, I have a question." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small blue box. "Actually, I have 2 questions." Bradley's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. "Bradley Calloway," Rebecca said, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant platinum band. "You've shown me what real strength looks like, not running a company or making millions, but getting up every day and loving your daughter with everything you have. You've taught me that success means nothing without someone to share it with. Will you marry me?" Bradley's smile was blinding, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Yes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely yes." Rebecca turned to Emma, who was watching with wide eyes. "And Emma, I have a question for you too." She produced a small velvet pouch and handed it to the little girl. "Would you consider letting me be part of your family? Not to replace your mom, ever, but to be someone else who loves you very much." Emma opened the pouch, pulling out a delicate silver bracelet with a charm in the shape of a book. "Like Charlotte's Web," she whispered, recognizing the reference to the first book they'd discussed. "Exactly," Rebecca said, blinking back tears. "Because books open new chapters, and that's what I'm hoping we can do, start a new chapter together." Emma launched herself into Rebecca's arms. "Yes, can I call you Mama Becca?" Rebecca held her close, meeting Bradley's equally emotional gaze over the little girl's head. "I would be honored." Bradley moved to join them, wrapping his arms around both of them. "I told you her smile would change everything," Emma whispered loudly to her father, "just like you said that first day." "You were right, Em," Bradley agreed, kissing the top of his daughter's head before leaning in to kiss his new fiancée. "Her smile changed everything." As the morning crowd swirled around them, Rebecca held tight to her newfound family, marveling at how a chance encounter in a coffee shop had led to this moment of perfect happiness. Her phone buzzed in her bag, undoubtedly work, always demanding her attention, but for once, it could wait. The most important meeting of her life was already in progress, right here at this small corner table where a struggling single dad's smile had changed her life forever.